just now. Excellent. So welcome to the sixth and final seminar in this continued professional development seminar series. The seminar, the course, has been offered by the International Federation of Social Workers. And as I'm sure you know by now, the series has been developed through collaboration between academics and researchers from countries that have in the past, or they still do, experienced political conflict or transitions from conflict to peace and vice versa. The majority of the presentations so far in this series have been based on research, but also on the lived experience and practice experience of political conflicts. So presenters include practitioners, academics, and they have included people with, as I said before, lived experience of conflicts, as well as health and social care services. In the seminars held to date, we focused on social work during the political conflict. We discussed work with refugees. We emphasized on post-conflict reconstruction and reconciliation. You will find all this material if you visit the IFSW website, where our ambition is to develop a permanent repository of information. Now, in this session, our focus turns to the international organizations, the global partnerships, and the overall global social work contribution to sustainable peace. We will be introducing speakers right before each presentation. I will now pass on to my co-host, who will be discussing the structure of the seminar.
Many thanks, Vasilios. So in each seminar, including this one, we have the following structure. We have two presenters this time, and each presenter or set of presenters will have about approximately 20 minutes to present their work, followed by a brief 5-minute opportunity to ask questions. At the end of the overall session, we will have a brief wrap-up of the whole series, but there will also be further opportunities to ask questions. To encourage all participants to attend all 6 sessions, we have encouraged everyone to attend all 6 sessions, but we have agreed that for people who attended more than 4, we will be offering certificate at the end of the seminar series. And I will remind everyone at the end, but please allow approximately 4 to 6 weeks for these to be emailed out to you. They will be emailed to the email which you registered when registering for the whole series. So far, the chat function has been used a lot for everyone to say where they're from, and it's wonderful to see again that we have participation from social workers and from across at least 4 continents, if not all of them. And please feel free to use the chat to network and to offer running commentary on the session. If you find that distracting, then please just mute the chat function. There should be, again, subtitles available to participants who may need them, thanks to Bernard Mayaka from IFSW. And to ask the question of presenters, please use the Q&A function. You will be muted during the presentations, and please, when making any comments or asking questions, make sure that you're respectful of all presenters and participants. To help us to learn from the series, there will be an evaluation survey which will be shared at the end. So if you could share, please make sure that you fill it out and that you let us know about what you made of the series of this particular seminar and what you would like to do going forward. I'll now pass back over to Vasilios to introduce our first presenter.
Thank you, Ria. So without further ado, I would like to invite actually one of the most active and proactive social work practitioners I've met and worked with, Anna Radulescu, who's the president of IFSW Europe. Anna will be discussing in her presentation some of the nuances, the differences between social work responses on the one hand and humanitarian responses in the context of war and conflicts. Welcome, Anna. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your invitation. I heard that you had very, very interesting session before. I could just follow one of it. You know, today we are day 66 of the war in Ukraine. And for me, even today, saying that there is a war in Europe, it's very difficult because it's hard to consider that we live this time when we have war. So since the war started, of course, I created a team of social workers, and we start to work with the Department for Emergency Situation in Romania to cooperate with them in different places. We work at the border, different borders of Romania. We have I work in two important borders. I say important because these are the borders with the highest number of people entering, which is Suceava and Tulcea, two borders. And but also as social workers, we are present in transition centers. We call it like this because these are the centers where people are staying only for a few days or a few hours, continuing their trip. And also centers with a long term planning. We don't know how long, but people are saying that they would like to stay longer and then go back to their country. I am coordinating the social workers' intervention in Romania for the support. And I have the chance to move to different levels, which means I can work with people coming from Ukraine, and this is what I did in the last week. But I also work at the strategy of intervention. And this is giving me the chance to understand more how these different levels of coordination or decisions are related to how support is provided. So you invited me to discuss a little bit about the humanitarian support and social work support. And this is very interesting because I think during these days, we were challenged a lot about this difference. In many situations, was said that social workers are doing humanitarian support, and the other way around, that organization doing humanitarian support are providing social work. And it was a big confusion in the beginning. And it was a long way to explain what are social workers doing. And I'm sorry, I'm a little bit incoherent. Sometimes my sentences are flying because I'm a little bit tired. I didn't sleep a lot the last week. I had to do also night shifts. I would like to start telling you just one case. I was just working, and I'm just working in the case about how humanitarian support and social work it's connected and the difference between them. And I think this was one case where, of the many cases, we could show the difference between social work intervention and humanitarian support. From Ukraine, a number of people arrived in different ways. It is surprising that many children were simply given to family leaving the country. So those deciding to stay in Ukraine gave their children to other family to bring them out of the country. I think this is a very dramatic situation for the family. So the girl I'm going to tell you about, it happened like that. She's 18 years old. I will call her Katerina for the presentation. And Katerina is 18 years old, which means in Ukraine, she's the first year in the university. In my country, it's the last year of the high school. But she's not considered a child in Ukraine, but in my country, she was just, there at the border. She's 18 years and 2 or 3 months. So the parents decided that they will stay there. The mother decided to stay with her father and 2 small children in Ukraine, but they made a very hard decision to connect her with the family and send her out of the country. she's from a city close to Mariupol, so her city is now very close to the war. They have already at the border of the city. They have the war. So the girl arrived with the family in Romania, and the family that accompanied her decided to continue the trip in Europe. But the girl did not want to go farther for the border because she wanted to stay close to her family. It was very difficult for her. So she decided to stay somewhere in Romania and move to the county close to the border. And now the story starts because the family accompanying her decided to ask to an NGO who is providing humanitarian support to provide a kind of help for her to be transferred to the county. And this NGO, that is an NGO, it's an NGO that is providing support with no other bad intention. But they send a black car with people that were not very skilled in communication to pick up her. And when the car arrived, and she was afraid to step into the car, and the family that accompanied her asked the driver, where is she going? And the driver made a big mistake saying, it's not your problem. So the girl was so scared that she took her luggage and ran to the police and asked the police to bring her to the railway. And she was traveling with a train many hours to the other part of Romania, to the border, because she wanted to go back. She wanted to really travel back to Ukraine. She was absolutely scared. When she arrived to the border, she decided to stop to eat in a place there. We have at the border places where you can eat. So she stopped there. And while she was eating, she started to cry. So a psychologist from an NGO in this border started to discuss with her. What's wrong? What happened to you? And she said a little bit about that she wants to go back and she's very scared. But another NGO offered to provide her accommodation for a day because she's very tired. She wants to eat something and stay there. So this psychologist just tried to have a discussion with her, but I know this NGO, so they immediately contact me saying, Anna, there is a problem. I think you have to step in the situation. So I stepped into the situation. I contact this NGO that offered her accommodation, and I discussed with them, what's your plan with the girl? And they said, we don't know. We don't know what to do because in general, we offer accommodation to people that they are going abroad to other country. So we don't know what to do with her because she wants to go back. So I asked them kindly to keep the girl in the hotel as many days as we need in order to prepare a planning. I sent a team of social workers. The team went there, and the people in this center that already start to have a kind of trusting relationship with her for, I don't know, a few hours. So the social workers start to discuss with her. In this team, I sent very young social workers. In fact, one of them is a student. It was a social worker and the student is social, very young, almost her age. So it was easy to say, let's go out for an ice cream. So they went in the city then together and discuss what do you want to do? Was the question, what would you like to do? And she said, I'm a student in medicine. I would like to continue. I'm afraid to go home. I'm afraid to stay here. I don't know what to do. My mother is not with me, but I will go back in my country because here I don't know what to do. So the team of social workers said, let's think about, stay some days here. We stay in contact and let us find some opportunities and solution for you. So the NGO continued to provide accommodation and food for her, but over the counseling, we did it. And we managed to find a place for her for not limited time in the student dormitory in the university that is exactly there in the county, with a room that is just for her and had, it's a hotel for master degree students and PhD students for the university. And the rector we contacted the rector. I'm also a professor in the university, so it was easy to contact the rector of this university and discuss and ask him to help us with this case. And he said, no problem, she can have the place in our dormitory and no problem for us to stay as long as she needs. And then this happened exactly before the Eastern time. And we asked her, what would you like to do? You are alone. And she said, I really feel really alone. I don't want to be alone. Then I asked the team of social workers to find a plan for her for Eastern. So the social workers, the girl that was already in contact with her, invite her in her family. She accepted and then introduced her to her network of colleagues and family. She already met and she entered a network of her age with people speaking her language, because these families are also from Moldavia and they also speak Russian, so they can speak. And now she's connected with the library there. She continued the university and she's looking for a job. She speaks English only in 10 days, I think it was the case we start now. She already speaks English and she wants to find a job. And more than that, she convinced her mother and the two brothers to come to Romania. And we managed also to get accommodation for her mother and the two kids to join her. And today I met her because she needed some support, some confirmation that she can stay with her mother, and also some support for some supply for her university, because she's preparing for exam now. So I met her today in this place, and we could exchange some ideas. I was in contact with her all the time, and if there would be, what is very interesting, and this is, I know my time is running, I will just take 5 minutes more. It's very important when we transfer her from this place to the place that she stayed for a long time, because we did not went there with a car, take her and bring her there. I decided to go there with a car, take also the person from the NGO that she already had the trust and relationship, take the social worker, and we said, we don't move you now, we just show you the place. And if you like it, you stay. If not, you tell us and we find something else. So we drove about, there are 40 kilometers distance from the border. She saw the place. She made immediately the decision that she wants to stay, and I asked her to think about it, to be sure. We show her the place where she eats. We spend some time with her in the city to be sure that if she's making a decision, it's a decision that she really understands the decision she's making. So the second day we went back, and the second day we set a time and she packed everything. We discuss again about the decision of moving and things like that. And so this is what I want to say about the difference between what does mean a social work intervention and what does mean providing humanitarian support. People arriving in our countries, they are losing a lot in their life. They are entering really a chaotic life. They didn't expect, they didn't plan. And of course, they need also food and accommodation, and they need transport wherever they need. But what they also need is that they have an idea what will happen to them. Is this kind of prediction about their life and this control of the life they have or they need to have. So what we are doing as social workers is to be sure that, first of all, we understand what they want. It's not we get everything, but what they want. And then we connect them with resources that they are not just taking the first road in front of them, but they say, okay, with this road, I'm comfortable. I know how to handle my energy, my resources, that I feel comfortable and I feel safe. And we don't know when they feel safe. They have to tell us they feel safe or not to build their life. And also to be sure that, the resources, and this is also something between the difference between the two, humanitarian and social work. Humanitarian organization, with all respect, because I work with them and I'm very close to, many of them would like to help so much that the help is doing bad things to them than good things to refugees. So sometimes all this offering people something they don't need is not a way to help a person. And therefore, as social workers, we not only try to understand what they want, but also we offer them alternatives, because we understand that making a decision during this time, it's important for people to enter again the control of their life, not feeling like victims, and they can make good decisions for themselves, and they start building, because they, I know they have to save themselves, but they also are building their life. We don't see this part sometimes. So for us as social workers during this war, at least in Romania, it was very important to make the difference. What does mean humanitarian support and what does mean social worker intervention, and where are we entering to support people and trusting and making predictions and helping them to make decisions and seeing different roads they can take. I think this is the most important thing for a person which is, again, in a chaotic life and suffering losses. So that's all for tonight, because my time is running.
Thank you so much, Anna. And it's not all for tonight, because there's going to be some discussion as well. Of course, we appreciate that, you're very tired and you have been working tirelessly for weeks. But now you're here with us, we're not going to let go of you so easily. There's already a very enthusiastic response from the chat room. But a question we would like to ask you is in relation to, actually, the local communities, the Romanian communities, the community near the border. How have the responses of the community been to this extensive transit of people through the border from Ukraine? Has it been mixed? Has it been overwhelmingly supportive? And if so, what are the challenges for you in terms of navigating through what you mentioned before, the community resources, mobilizing them and coordinating them?
Shall I answer, Vasilios? Sorry.
Please, yes, please.
Interruption. Yes. It is very interesting that the local communities, not only at the border, but also in Romania, because people, our interest was to help people not to stay in the counties at the border, because then it would be too much for this county. They will not have resources if everybody will stay in the city along the border. So then they enter the country where resources, it's much easier for the community to answer a smaller number of people. The communities answer in absolutely incredible way, because a lot of families welcome people in their houses, and also the social work services and the NGO at the local level, they offer support, but you can't have so many resources. It's impossible. That's why, for example, one of our tasks was not only to help people entering Romania, but also helping the communities. So it's also Herbert publishing here in the meeting. He was helping me to bring resources from Austria and Germany. And just to have an idea, we brought about 250 tons of different things that people need in their move. And we brought these goods to communities also, not only for refugees, but also for people offering support, because they wanted to help, but their resources went down. So I think it's very important to consider, and here I would like to add something related to communities. It's very important in such a situation as happened in Romania, that when you have a community and you help only Ukrainian people in community, but not people living in poverty in the same community, then it's very dangerous for the peace in the community, for the coherence in the community, because you cannot say, I help only people from Ukraine, but people that are in Romania and living in poverty, they can't get the support. And I had such a situation in a community which is not, it's quite a poor community, because we brought from Austria some goods, and we brought it to the social work services for people coming from Ukraine. And they said, 10 tons is a lot to work with. So they ask people that are beneficial of social services to help them, to distribute the goods, to organize them. And then the director of the social service asked me, is this possible that we also give them a little bit because they help us? And this was in fact something that, it was a misunderstanding, because my agreement with all the donors is that we share in the community for people living in the same condition, which means if they are without resources, they also should share in order that then they stay in positive relationship with each other. So of course, this was very interesting for me in the first time that I was really reflecting strong to this. And I explained that this is for everybody in the community, because if a community is not strong enough, if the people doesn't have resources, then they cannot help those entering their community. And if you bring too many people in a community, which is already poor, and they share, because people without resources, they are first sharing the less resources they have. Exactly. So then you put a community in a high risk that they are left without resources. So as social workers, we were looking to this, and together with Herbert, we promote a lot this concept. Be aware that in communities, you have people from Ukraine and local people, and they are living the same condition of poverty. So let's spend all our resources in both of them. And, I think it's about the community, at least a little bit about the community.
Exactly. That's very insightful. Thank you so much, Anna. And Ria now will be introducing our next couple of speakers.
Thank you so much. Much to reflect on and linked on, hopefully. It's my real pleasure now to introduce Hawa Page and Rashid Bangura, who are national consultants in child protection systems for UNICEF in Libya. And they will tell you a bit more about the support for mainstreaming and integration of child protection and psychosocial support in Libya that they're doing through their work. Now, Hawa and Rashid, over to you. And you have a raised hand, so I don't know whether you want to start first with any comments on Anna's presentation.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I had my hand up. I wanted to have a question for Anna. Anna, thank you for that very great presentation. I know that when there's war, because I know in Liberia we've had a civil crisis for 15 years, and I know when there's crisis, the system is overwhelmed. And then you find humanitarian workers working as social workers. I just want to find out from Anna, did you experience that? And if so, what did you do to make sure that social work do the work of social workers, and then the humanitarian workers remain in line?
We ensure permanent professional supervision. So I have a team of social workers that are working and providing all the teams in the field. And the translators, I forgot to say, I don't have enough time to talk about translators. Social workers are working together with a translator because they don't speak the language, most of them. So what we needed, it was to provide permanent supervision and keeping permanent contact with them, guiding them in practice, and be sure that they are able to not only to keep in line the practice and to do this systemic approach, and to build their skill and knowledge on the way. Because yes, my social work association team was trained during the years with NATO. 3 years ago, we trained for this as social workers. We never knew that we are doing this work for Romania. We trained for other countries to support other countries. Now we are using the knowledge in our training to our country. So I had a group of social workers trained for this kind of intervention. And this is the most important, I think, that we ensure continuous professional supervision for our social workers and trainers, translators.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hawa and Rashid, do you want to tell us a bit more now about your work?
Right. Yeah, sure.
All right, thank you very much. I just want to make one quick correction that we are in Liberia.
Sorry, I do apologize.
The emailing you were talking about Tripoli. Another thing is that I don't know whether we'll be able to share our presentation on the screen. I've sent it to you guys to see if it can be.
Actually, just to warn you, I do apologize again. The line seems to be breaking. So.
Okay, sorry. So I was just asking whether there's a possibility to share the presentation on screen.
Yeah. Yeah, you should be able to. Just a second.
Well, you can share. Huh?
There we go. Yeah, you should be able to.
Share screen.
Just at the bottom on the green button.
Okay. This one, right?
I can see your screen.
Okay.
Excellent. Yeah, we can see it. If you can just enter the presentation mode.
Yes. Can you see it now?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So Hawa and I going to go through this presentation with you. My name is Rashid Bangura. I'm a consultant for UNICEF and the Ministry of Gender here working on child protection system strengthening, and my colleague Hawa.
Hawa Page, I'm child protection specialist working on system strengthening as well.
All right. So we will be sharing with you our experience in Liberia, most especially focusing on the role of UNICEF and other international organizations when it comes to social work as a profession. So if you look at, we've come up with an outline looking at what this presentation covers, geographic information about Liberia, social political context, social work as a profession in Liberia, issues social workers are working on in this country, challenges faced by the profession, the role of international organizations, most especially UNICEF, then Q&A. So Liberia is a country in the west coast of Africa. If you look at the world map and you will see the red and orange, that is Liberia. That's where Liberia is situated. Currently has an estimated population of 5.7 million. The capital city is Monrovia, and the country is divided into 15 sub-political divisions called counties, and 73 districts, political districts. Liberia, in terms of social political context, Liberia has recovered from a civil conflict that lasted for 14 years, political unrest, started in 1989 and ended in 2003 through a comprehensive peace accord that was signed in Accra, Ghana by all the warring factions. We had our first peaceful transfer of power in 2017. So the last time Liberia had a peaceful transfer of power through election was in 1947, and the recent one was in 2017. So you can see that Liberia as a country have had a very prolonged and protracted conflict situation, which affected all fabrics of the society, breakdown systems, governance systems, political systems were all torn apart. The country is currently ranked 173 out of 186 countries in the Human Development Index, and poverty is over 50%. So we have over 50% of the population below the poverty line. Liberia was recovering from the aftermath of the Ebola virus disease that struck in 2014 through 2016, when the COVID-19 pandemic struck. So you can already see that a country was coming from a very difficult situation, trying to recover, and went back and have to deal with COVID-19. So we had the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection was established to provide policy guidance and advice to the government on social protection issues, on gender and children's issues. So this is just summary background in terms of our social political context. Social work as a profession in Liberia, you see, social work as a profession is new to Liberia. Social work is new to Liberia because social work was only introduced during the civil conflict of Liberia. And this was mainly by international organizations like UNICEF and the rest that were responding to the needs of internally displaced persons, Liberians, but also refugees who had come from neighboring Sierra Leone. At the time, they also had conflict. So that was the first time we started talking about social work, but not as a profession per se. What was the understanding of the term social work? Social work was firstly used, like I said, during the conflict. So it was seen as service provision or community engagement function rather than a profession. So as a result, you have anybody who could just go to community and provide services being regarded as a social worker, not somebody who have qualification. In terms of social work as a profession, Liberia just started discussing social work as a profession in 2006 when Mother Patton launched their first social work degree program. That's when social work was being discussed as a profession rather than a community service function. What are the issues that social workers were working on, and what are some of the issues currently social workers are working on? So coming from a conflict background, Liberia social workers supported the DDR program that has to do with disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration and rehabilitation. Mainly social workers that UNICEF was supporting were mainly looking at working with children who were formerly associated with armed groups or fighting forces, but also other children who were affected by the conflict, supporting them and working with them. Social workers were working with internally displaced persons and also refugees, helping to meet basic needs, but also address rights issues of discrimination, issues of human rights. They were working on to make sure that there's access to justice, there's access to services, helping people to be able to connect with their families. These were some of the works that social workers were doing. Social workers were supporting returnees, people who were in exile, Liberians who fled to other countries were coming back, trying to make sure that they have opportunity to have access to their land or documentation through referrals and other support mechanisms. Social workers were working on case management of vulnerable children, most especially unaccompanied adolescent, separated children. They were working on adolescent mothers, children who were victims of sexual violence, children in street situation, children who were involved with drugs and alcohol. So despite that, some of these situations were coming from the conflict, the war, today we still have some of these issues confronted, social issues confronting Liberia, and social workers are working on these issues like issues of drugs, issues of children in street situation, issues of child labor and trafficking. Social workers are working on these issues currently. Well, we try to look at some of the challenges confronting social workers in Liberia. First, we look at the profession itself is currently not regulated because it started with volunteers and community mobilizers working with vulnerable people. So as a result, anyone that is providing community service is largely regarded as a social worker. So this is one challenge that currently Liberia is confronted with. Unlike other professions within the social service workforce, like for example, health workers and teachers, the current policy and legislative environment in Liberia is weak and does not support the social work profession. So you have the health sector, health workers are being professionalized. You have teachers are being professionalized. There are different competence frameworks, the different national level accreditations for health schools, education schools. But when it comes to social work, this is very limited and the policy environment does not support that yet. We currently have two professional associations, the Association of Social Workers of Liberia and the National Board of Social Work. Though these two institutions are in place, but currently they are very weak and very centralized. So as a result, they are not able to have like membership registration. They're not being able to have understanding of how many social workers are in Liberia who are practicing, how many social workers have come from abroad that are practicing in Liberia who are even non-Liberian but have social work qualifications. So this is another challenge. Currently, there's no standardized training curriculum for both pre-service and in-service training. So you found out that different universities are offering their own courses, their own trainings, and some of these curriculum are not deeply informed by our local context. They are guided by international knowledge by and large. So this is a huge challenge. There are very limited professional social workers in Liberia. So as a result, when you look at, we just put this to children, but when you look at the child social worker to child ratio per 100,000 population is 3. And if you apply this to the general population, it will further go down to 1 social worker per 80,000 population. We think this is very huge as a challenge for social workers. So, yeah. In terms of the role of international organizations like UNICEF and lastly, before I come to that, there's a very limited government investment in social work as a profession, though it has been recognized that there's a huge need for social workers, but there's just very little investment from the government. So largely, the government depends on international organizations like UNICEF to be able to support with other community structures. For example, having paraprofessionals, having community volunteers like child welfare committees to be able to step in, but with some very little supervision from professional social workers. So what is UNICEF doing in Liberia in order to support the social work profession or to support social workers? We are looking at this from a 3-dimension. One is a policy and legislative dimension, education dimension, and also opportunity for experience and practice. In terms of strengthening policy environment, UNICEF in Liberia is supporting the government, first of all, to develop and strengthen its overall child protection system. As you know that UNICEF focuses on children. So UNICEF, we're looking at ensuring that there's a very robust child protection system that's able to provide or meet the needs of children and their families. So we are currently supporting the adoption of policies and legislation to support, to professionalize social work. So we are working with the government, the Association of Social Workers and other key players to make sure that there's a very strong accreditation regime, there's a very strong licensing regime, but also to ensure that social work is seen as a profession, but not just as anyone who would just come in and engage with communities and say I'm a social worker. So we have currently conducted a social service workforce assessment that has given us a very clear picture of where we are as a country in terms of the overall social service workforce with emphasis on social work. We are working with the Board of Social Work to standardize social work training programs, including curriculum and a national examination scheme or regime that will set the basis for accreditations and licensing. We are also working with relevant stakeholders to put in place, like I talk about, the license regime for practicing social work in Liberia. When it comes to education, which is the second component, we are working with the Board of Social Work to develop a standardized curriculum. We are also providing opportunity for placement of social work students for field practicum and also internship opportunities for graduates. Here is where UNICEF is working with other international organizations like IRC, like Save the Children, Plan International, as well as the government, to be able to have a kind of a strong relation to provide opportunity for social work students to have placement opportunities in those institutions while they go through supervision from experienced social workers who are already in the field. UNICEF is also working with other institutions trying to provide opportunities for continuing education and career advancement. For example, in 2012, USAID funded a project through World Learning that provided scholarship for social workers to go and specialize through a master's program. Because at the time, Liberia did not have any master's program, it was just the bachelor's program. So students will have to go to Ghana, but this was mainly targeting government social workers. There has also been career development opportunities programs, like for example, Save the Children and Mother Pattern had this special project targeting high school students to be able to go through a one-year program with field placement to attract them into the social work profession. And this program was a success because a lot of the students, the high school students who were enrolled in this program were able to go back to have a 4-year degree program in social work. In terms of practical experience opportunities, like I said earlier, UNICEF supported the government of Liberia in hiring and training 200 social workers and placing them across the country to be able to support children and families. Supported the placement of social workers to respond to refugee crisis in 2010, 2011, 12. There was a political unrest in neighboring Cote d'Ivoire. We had an influx of refugees who came in, and UNICEF was able to support the hiring and placement of social workers to respond to that refugee situation. UNICEF is also advocating with other international organizations and the government to prioritize the hiring and placement of professional social workers as a plan to phase out paraprofessionals and making sure that we have professional social workers who are engaged in providing supervision. Even if there's a need to have paraprofessionals, they will be under a very strong supervision of professional social workers. We are working on creating a strong supervision system to support social workers at all levels. So at the community level, at the district level, and at the county and regional level. So, and also providing training for our social work administrators and supervisors as well. So part of what we are doing currently, we are working because by and large, most of the work, the focus is on case management. So we are working on developing technical guidance and standard operating procedure on case management of vulnerable children. We are working on developing a roadmap on working with children in strict situation So these are some of the work that we are doing in developing a 3-tier training for paraprofessionals, social workers, and supervisors who are already providing services to vulnerable children and their families. So we'd like to thank you for your time in terms of what international organizations like UNICEF are doing in Liberia to support social workers. This is what we are doing. And we are working very strongly with the government of Liberia through the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There has been quite a few questions and comments as we've been going through. And I'll try and start us off with one and we'll see how it goes. It kind of links also, it's from an anonymous attendee and links to a question which was asked later on by Maria, I think. So when a country, how many programs, just a side question, how many programs in a country of 5 million roughly do you have at the moment? Because you mentioned there is a few.
Programs?
Social work courses.
If you talk about social work courses, right now we have 4 universities that are offering a bachelor's program, and we have one that is offering a master's program. We don't currently have any institution that is providing continuing education programs like certificate courses or diploma courses. So that's what we have currently. And just to say that the master's program currently is only focusing on counseling.
And also, sorry, just a sideline. Do you mind just stopping the sharing so we can see each other more clearly?
Yeah.
Thank you. So linked to that, there was a really good question and links to a previous presentation we had last week from a colleague in Nepal who talked about the colonizing social work curricula and kind of looking at local practices and how culture should inform social practice and social work knowledge. So the attendee asked, thank you, when a country introduces a social work education degree, how can we incorporate the knowledge and experience of those who were practicing informal social work before? This goal seems in line with the idea presented last week that we should decolonize social work and incorporate indigenous knowledge or local knowledge.
So let me come in. So what we've done, we have the opportunity in Liberia because we have very limited number of social workers. Right now we have 67 social workers to 5.7 million people. So what we're doing is we are working closely with our, we call them community welfare committees. They are community leaders, community dwellers identified by the community people that will, the only role they have to play is to identify and refer any child abuse situation to social workers. So these people are working. So this is a perfect opportunity for us to bring social workers to the people that are not social workers, but also doing the work to support the social work in Liberia.
And you mentioned, you mentioned case management and casework quite a few times, which are presumably more imported ways of working rather than local ones, which may be more community organized. I may be wrong on that. Where does the knowledge come from? Does it come from France, from US? Because you mentioned that it draws a lot on international social work knowledge.
Let me just come to that question in terms of having indigenous knowledge. When the social work degree program started in Liberia, a lot of this was being supported by University Calvin from the States. So a lot of in terms of the development of the curriculum, most of the work were informed just by international social work practice, social work ethics, and all of that. But like I mentioned to you, we've done a social service workforce assessment. And in that assessment, we were able to talk to paraprofessionals, community volunteers, community leaders, children who have gone through, who have received services, and also families who have received services. And we also wanted, some of the questions we're asking was to test social workers who are already practicing. What is their understanding of the local knowledge, the local custom, the local culture? And analysis from that assessment inform us that there's a lot that has to be done in terms of incorporating, for example, local customs and local cultures, right? So for example, going into a community and how do you speak to elders? How do you engage women? If there are issues of conflict, for example, in a household, and probably it's leading to divorce, what are the local customs and traditions around child custody and all of that? So we have asked all of these questions and have documented findings from this. And one thing that is going to happen now is that all the universities currently that are offering social work degree program themselves have acknowledged that there's a need to include local indigenous knowledge into their programs, into their curriculum. So the harmonized curriculum will be looking into making use of these research findings and these recommendations. For example, there are children who spoke about how they wanted to engage and interact with social workers. There are families who talked about how they want to engage, how they want to interact with social workers, the kind of support they will want to get from social workers. So all of these information is being compiled, and gracefully, there's a consensus among stakeholders. When I say stakeholders, the institutions of higher learning, the Association of Social Workers, the National Board of Social Work, everybody is on board. We have now, what we have done is that we've set up a national leadership group and a technical working group. So these groups will be supporting with all of these processes. So we have brought in the civil service agency government. We have brought in the universities, including the University of Liberia, to be able to sit on the table to discuss this and see how we can make sure that there's local knowledge. But also another thing is the field placement and the follow-ups from the field placement are also giving a lot of information about what are some of the changes that need to happen.
So let me give an example. So we had the influx of refugees in the country, and we deployed social workers in the community, but we weren't getting all the information that we needed to be able to identify unaccompanied children to reunify them. The reason was simple, because we didn't identify the local, parasocial workers that understand the culture, that are able to communicate to the children culturally, so we went for about a month, and within 6 weeks, we realized that we were making mistakes, leaving out the local community. So we got them involved, and within 6 months, we were able to get all the information that we wanted to get. So we are even developing our case management SOP, and a component of that SOP is going to be a training for locals and also parasocial workers. So the community is playing a huge role in the success, especially in an underdeveloped country where you have limited number of social workers.
It's actually wonderful to hear that some 17 years after the Paris Declaration, encouraging international organizations to work and engage with local knowledge and local communities. It's really encouraging to hear that it's finally happening, and that UNICEF is facilitating the gathering of this local knowledge. Yeah. Are there also considerations about incorporating it into the law? Because it's partially its knowledge, but also the law would need to reflect what local customs are and what local culture is around particular issues, as well as the international standards. So will there be changes to legislation to reflect that as well?
Well, what I can say to that is UNICEF is working on that in terms of advocacy. So currently UNICEF has an MOU with the Ministry of Gender and ECOWAS, which is a regional body, the West Africa regional body, to implement the strategic framework for strengthening child protection systems. And when you look at that strategic framework, it's a regional tool. It talks a lot about commitment from government in terms of policy commitments, but also in terms of budgetary commitment. So one of the things we are looking for right now in our advocacy is to ensure that there's a comprehensive law that provides for social workers and social work practice.
And is UNDP doing similar work in terms of working with adults and with older people? Or other organizations?
No, we at this point, we are not working with UNDP yet, even though we have a national leadership group that UNDP is a member of. But when it comes to advocating with the legislation, we haven't gotten UNDP on board. But we are hoping to have all UN agencies, like UN Women, UNFPA, especially on board to help us work on this.
Thank you so much. I'll pass on now to Vasilios because we've had good time to joint questions, and there is some more for Anna.
See, some of the questions, they do follow specific patterns so far. I mean, there's a pattern around, a thematic pattern around indigenization, and you have dealt with this already. You've discussed this through. There is another set of questions for Anna. Actually, there's a couple of sets of questions. Anna, the first set of questions is around self-care, practitioner self-care. You mentioned, even from your personal example, that you have spent so much time near the border doing all the legwork, doing all the leadership. But what about self-care? What would be your advice to practitioners who operate in these extreme circumstances?
Yes, and thank you very much for all the questions. It's also something else I did not mention. As this happened suddenly for us, we cannot find to employ social workers just for this work, which means they are doing their job and also they are doing this support, extra support. And for 66 days now, we have students in social work and social workers who are doing this work voluntarily or as added to their job. Just to be clear, we could not stop our services in Romania. So we continue to do our work. And this increase, of course, the risk for tiredness and strong need for self-care. And I appreciate these questions. To answer this, we create very big teams of social workers in order that they go in many shifts. I mean, they probably have 2 shifts per week extra to their job. They also, we also create teams of 2 social workers or 1 social worker and the student in social work, which means they have the possibility to discuss, to reflect, to have the possibility to share their knowledge or skills, to learn from each other. And more than that, they have the possibility to, to replace one each other in this work when they are very tired. And also we give them the possibility that they choose the time to do these shifts. So if they don't feel that they are capable of doing, they don't choose. So they are also making decision about their time. We have the possibilities also to provide them supervision, in the supervision also a little bit of guidance about how to take care of themselves during this time, how to spend time with family. For us and for me personally, it's very important, the time with the family. So I take a week far away, and it was important because we had to introduce new concept at the border to create a systemic approach there, because it took us a lot of time to do that. But then it's very important that I keep in contact with my family and I turn back to my family. And I think this is the most important thing. And also to things that are important for my life. And I think this is also for all social workers. It's impossible that this work is not having an emotional toll on us. It's impossible because it's not only the mental and emotional effort, but it's also physical effort. And also the condition we are working, because for example, if you stay 12 hours outside and it's cold or it's sun, it's not easy work if it's at the border. So then we put in place a number of activity and guidance for them. And for us, it's very important that they never do something more than the resources they have. If you don't have resources, you cannot invest in others. And here is coming the next topic, if you allow me, Vasilios, about trainings. Yeah.
I was about to ask this question because there are 3 questions, Anna, which is fascinating, really similar, wondering whether IFSW should have a role in creating educational or practice programs in this context, or even drills. I think somebody used the word drill in preparation. So how would IFSW or the social work community in general deal with this educational aspect?
You can't work in this field if you don't have a training and you don't have knowledge or skills, because this either affect people you are working with or affect you. Therefore, during all this time, I also provide trainings to the people, to the social workers, to psychologists, but also to volunteers, the volunteers from the Humanitarian organization that we are working with. They are local organization. To answer also this question, the humanitarian support is coming from the local organization in Romania. I'm also working, for example, with Vasilios in Austria, which supports social workers with all these things that we needed, like food and hygienic material and everything. But we also work with International Organization for Migration. But without training, you can't handle this work. So the answer, yes, we should have in IFSW training on this, and we have enough knowledge to create such a training. We create a number of webinars in Europe because we had, the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and we had a number of webinars on this, but we never created training. So I think looking around now to all the countries around Ukraine, they need support and they need skills and knowledge. And I think we will consider this. And Vasilios, I will approach you with this information also. But I did something else. For example, I am providing course in the university for students on how to deal with disasters, including how to work in a war zone. So I created such a course and I offered to my students as a free course to choose. And the big number of students who choose this course, so I decided to keep it for the 3rd year now. And I think it's really important that we connect students with different kind of context of practice. Again, as I'm a practitioner, I know you cannot work in this field without training. And also to answer a comment that was on this chat, and that my sentence was not positive, that I cannot believe this is happening in Europe. Yes, I can't believe this is happening because we were living a number of wars in Europe. And we try the best to learn how to talk to each other, how to negotiate, how to consider our neighbors. So for me, living a pandemic and after this a war, it was really difficult to move from a context to another. The intervention is so different. I was also in front line during pandemic. Now I'm in a war, and I prepare for war, but again, not for my neighbors. And this is something, I think it was a lesson also for me, because now I take serious these courses for students, given the fact that half of the people we have in our team are students in social work.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Anna. Really, I'm mindful of the time, and given that this is the final really session of this 6-week course, I think we could allow 5 minutes, to reflect on the course. A course that was created not in response to the war in Ukraine. Actually, it was in the making for a long time, because as you said, Anna, there are multiple conflicts around the globe. So we didn't prioritize one. We sped up actually the launch to be truthful, but this was on the making for some time. And some of the themes we engaged with over a period of 6 weeks, as we said before, included how social workers respond during conflict, how we work with refugees and the displaced, reconstruction and transitions to peace, also listening to the voices less heard, the voices that do not usually make it to these courses and discussions, like child soldiers or families of the missing persons. Participation went beyond our wildest expectations, to be honest, which is exciting, but at the same time, a testament to the fact that there is need for education. And this is exactly articulated through the question in today's session. Concluding, I would say that, transitions from war to peace and vice versa, it really reminded us during these 6 weeks that peace is more than the absence of war. Peace is more than that. And the social work contribution towards creating sustainable peace is key, because peace is also about democratic accountability, is about collective reparations, is about learning the truth and incorporating justice, is about healing and reconciliation. And we're very confident, and this seminar, this series demonstrated that social work can become a vehicle for reclaiming this social, this political character in the reconciliation process. Priya, any suggestions about how can we move forward from here?
Thank you so much. I really, before we start wrapping up proper in the last 4 minutes, I really want to thank Anna and Hawa and Rashid for their contributions. And Anna and Hawa and Rashid, there are many in chat suggestions to connect. People really want to keep in touch. Anna, people are really keen. If there is any way you can suggest in the chat, if people can get more involved, how to get more involved. I also really want to say that for me, the most capturing words are from Anna, starting with people themselves, and that's what social work can offer in conflict. Starting with people themselves, being respectful of them and focusing on what they want in that moment and building from there. And that is something really that our position is uniquely placed, and going and understanding the local context, the local culture, as Hawa and Rashid said. So going forward, we really hope to broaden our network of social work researchers and activists who are from countries affected by political conflict. So Anna, absolutely, and Hawa and Rashid, I hope we continue to talk to each other. That's certainly the sentiment across all the presentations and all the people who engaged in this series. When filling out our evaluation survey, and I'll pop it in the chat again, and I've already shared it there, please make sure to let us know what you make of the seminar, but also to make your suggestions, which other activities, and there have been quite a few in both the Q&A and in the chat. So please make sure to fill it out to let us know what you feel would be the best way going forward. And really thank you to everyone who has taken part over the last 6 weeks. It has been quite a process. There've been COVID, there's been a lot of things that have happened over this period. If you attended the seminar, as I mentioned at the beginning, for 4 sessions or more, we will email you the certificate in about 4 to 6 weeks to the email against which you registered for the series. I really wish to thank everyone, and particularly my wonderful co-host and colleague Vasilios, for being with us and to helping organize this series, and helping to all our current presenters and to everybody else who made it so unique and so great. Thank you all so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.